89.3 and 88.5 Yes FM. Online at www.yeshome.com. Now on the free Yes FM iTunes app and the Yes FM Android app, or the free TuneIn Radio app. Search Yes FM Lima.
We are going to the phone lines where we are joined by Chris Stone. He's from Faith Driven Consumer, here to talk about the new movie, Noah. Chris, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you with us, and the movie Noah is certainly, it's causing quite a stir. It is, we saw the big ad for it in the Super Bowl, and lots of people talking about it. What are the big issues surrounding this movie? Why is it so controversial?
Well, the reason that it's so controversial is how the production has gone about. From the script to the initial screenings for some focus group, to some tension between the director and the studio. It's been a reasonably public process that some say the story of the movie diverges too much from the actual Bible account. We have received some information of late from sources that seem to know what they're talking about, that indicate that there will be many areas of the movie that faith-driven consumers will find true to their understanding of this sacred story, and there will be areas where they will pause and go, nope, that's not my story. So I think it remains to be seen in the final cut, in the final version that will begin airing March 28th. So I think as consumers, we'll have to judge for ourselves. As a consumer advocate and a consumer resource, we have gathered as much information as is available and reported it to faith-driven consumers to give them the ability to choose for themselves.
And what are the concerns, obviously where the story holds true to the Bible, I think people will be okay with it, but where are the concerns coming in that things have been changed or altered, and how much of that is, because we realize it's a movie, I mean, you're dramatizing it, there's going to be some, poetic license, I guess, to put it on screen. How much of it is just that, and how much of it is something that substantially alters the meaning of the story?
Well, I think that you have to ask yourself, why did God choose to destroy creation? Mm-hmm. What was his core purpose in doing that? And if you look at the Bible, if you look at the story of Noah in Genesis, which can be found in chapter 6, 7, 8, and 9, and if you read that, you'll see a number of things. Number one is there are many, many details that are not included. But the core message that is included is that God destroyed creation because of man's inherent evil and the way he acted that out. And if you were to alter the story and impose, as some people have suggested, a modern-day climate change, global warming, environmentalist tone, saying that, well, God really destroyed the earth because man was overpopulating it and he was being mean to trees, then that would be outside of the story that faith-driven consumers would understand to be God's purpose. Yeah. And some people have said that. I think that the producers have toned that down. But we all create things based upon our worldview, and many people in Hollywood have the worldview of that man is the evil on the earth. So there's opportunities to stray somewhat.
Yeah. Well, and especially the idea that overpopulation, one, there weren't that many people on the earth back then, not nearly as many as today, and two, of course, God's clear command to fill the earth and subdue it. And to populate the earth.
I think that's, I've had that conversation with many people in the media who have said, well, couldn't it be? And I said, well, if you read the Bible story and understand it, God did several things after the flood. One is he instructed Noah and his family to go forth and multiply.
Right.
He proved that point by giving us an incredible genealogy of how they did that. And as well, he gave man dominion over the earth, because it says clearly in the Bible that I have that God gave fear to all the animals in the air, the earth, and under the sea of man, that translates to me as he gave man dominion over the earth.
Yeah. And we know that, especially with environmental issues today, and not to get into the validity of those, but what is that danger of trying to read back into things, modern concerns, and do we lose? I guess what I'm saying is, if we're not telling the story based on how the people in the story would have understood what was going on, are we really doing violence to that story?
Well, I think that we often, in our culture, apply a current lens, a current context to issues of the past. When we hear someone who said something 30 years ago, and that's made big news, we're applying a current lens, when in fact, if we applied the lens of the day in which it was said, it might really have been different. And I'm not taking a stand one way or another on those specific issues, just the general nature of how we do that. The other part of it, which I think is interesting, is that the story means a lot to faith-driven consumers and Christians in general. And to change it or alter it may disincent those faith-driven consumers to see the movie. And our position as an organization and as a community is not to particularly tell Hollywood what to produce, because it's their studio, it's their money, they can do as they feel appropriate. Our job, I think, as all consumers, is to provide feedback to Hollywood and say, we're here and we're eager to engage with you, and if you want to be successful engaging with us, these are the important things to us.
Yeah.
And providing that feedback, then Hollywood can know how to appeal to us. And I think that's the nature of our modern capitalism. I mean, think about all of the opportunities that as consumers we have to provide feedback.
Yeah.
Whether it's Yelp or something like Angie's List or any number of other things where we're constantly telling people what we think.
And I do feel somewhat for the movie makers, because I think anytime you're going to make a biblical story, obviously, as Christians, as believers, we see this as a sacred truth. It's God's revealed word. So it's not just like another story. It's not like, hey, let's make a Charles Dickens story into a movie. So you're dealing with people who, hold these stories in high esteem and great reverence. And so you're almost entering into a minefield just choosing to do that, because any change you make is going to obviously open you up for criticism. But it does seem to me that because you look at a movie like The Ten Commandments, Charlton Heston. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's lots in that movie that's not in the Bible, and there were many, dramatic liberties taken in this story. And yet, it seems to me a story like that, an adaptation like that, is well received because it is essentially holds true to the story that we have in the Bible. But it's also, there's a respectfulness to the story of the Bible. And I wonder if sometimes the problem they get into is not so much, they added this part or they took that part away, but that they lack a respectfulness for the story itself as, maybe something more than just a story.
Well, there are a couple of things which I would give the studio credit for. Is they have come out now with a disclaimer saying that it is an adaptation, that it is not a direct conveyance of the biblical story. So they recognize that. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that they produced this movie for a broader audience than simply Christians. So they did take some liberties and they did fill in some holes as they saw fit. And I think if as faith-driven consumers we want to engage with Hollywood, we have to recognize that it is a process and that it's not going to be perfect. I can't think of a consumer product readily right now that is perfect, that meets every one of my needs perfectly.
Right.
I can look at my car and go, well, if it did this or that better, I'd be happier. My opportunity is to provide feedback and to engage and not just simply sit home and pout.
Right.
So, we're encouraging people to provide Hollywood with feedback and say, this is what I liked, be positive, and then say, this is what I would like it to be, how I'd like it to be better, and engage with Hollywood. Now, and talk about changing the story, think back to when Harry Potter came out or when Lord of the Rings came out. There were many people who were really attached to those books, to those stories.
Right.
And there was the same tension there with the producers who had to convey a film that was true enough to the story to appeal to those who were fans, and also to reach out to new fans who were just experiencing it for the first time in the theater. So this is not just a biblical or a Christian issue. This is a broad societal issue, and I think Hollywood is constantly facing that tension.
Yeah, because even if you look at a film like, The Passion of the Christ, which was clearly made out of a deep reverence for Christ and a deep reverence for the biblical story, and that still was criticized by some.
Yeah, and if you take the current movie Son of God as an example, we have rated it on our website, faithdrivenconsumer.com, with our movie rating system, and we rated it 4.5 out of 5 stars. And we're still getting people who will call and they'll pick an issue, or they'll email us and they'll pick an issue, and they'll say, well, it's not true here, so I don't like it. And we respond back, well, they did more right than they did wrong by anybody's estimate, and it's a whole lot better than anybody's produced in the last 20 years. So while we can't be just perfectly passive and happy about it, we can support it and reward the good behavior and encourage Hollywood to produce more.
Do we sometimes, as faith-based consumers, as people who, want to see more, maybe films or television shows or mass media that is respectful of Christianity, respectful of the Bible, respectful of people of faith, do we sometimes sabotage ourselves by, nitpicking everything that comes out?
I think we do. We've done some significant research on faith-driven consumers and find that 61% recognize that the marketplace is not meeting their needs as faith-driven consumers. 64% are actively searching for better options. So there is a hunger for better products, better services, better interaction. And I think what we have to do is it's a two-way street. When someone reaches out, we have to engage them. We don't have to just roll over and go, hey, this is the greatest thing. Thank you for even noticing me. What we need to do is engage in a positive conversation and say thank you. Thank you for reaching out. And engage with them and say, and if you want to improve the relationship, this is what it looks like. So to just simply boycott it and stay home, we've never been a fan of that. Now, many people do that, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to do. That's just not our thing. What we prefer is to boycott, to vote with our wallets and with our feet, and go to places and engage financially in things that are appealing to us and encourage that behavior. Because the studio is looking to make a profit, and we define profit as the reward that you receive for giving people what they need and what they want. So let's encourage them to do even better and to improve over time.
We're talking with Chris Stone from Faith Driven Consumer, talking about the movie Noah coming out March 28th, and really about the whole marketplace in general and Christian engagement with it. Hey, Chris, if folks want to find out more information about Faith Driven Consumer, how can they do so?
Well, they can come to our website, which is faithdrivenconsumer.com. And when they get there, they can see reviews of major national brands. They can see our new film review process. And most importantly, they can engage with other faith-driven consumers. It's an open forum to discuss things of economic nature, and just join the community and be a part and have your say.
Hey, Chris, thanks so much for joining us this morning. It's been great talking with you.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
Yes, FM.